Black cisgender heterosexual identified men are killing Black trans women. Black ones.
We are not talking about it in the church.
Those street guys are already engineers. If they're mixing drugs and stuff together, they're chemical engineers.
If you're just like, yeah, let's kill 50 cops just because, you know, that's only a fraction of the Black people that they killed. Wait, now you're talking about my wife.
For those of you who are joining in, we are talking about just the housing in the Black community and owning property, why it's important, and how to get yourself in there.
When I think of financial literacy, I just don't think of the classroom work. I think some of it is practical application.
I'm scared, especially, you know, calling them to arms, talking about poll workers or poll watchers. That is rooted in history of voter suppression and intimidation.
Joe Biden needs to make that a part of his educational platform.
Call that shit out.
I don't see much value in you speaking in tongues, and yet when you speak in English, you don't say nothing for my people.
Many of the reasons why we're dying is because of the conditions we live under that cause our health to be so bad, and that cause it's the food, it's the water, it's clean that shit up first.
When their fathers have prostate cancer, I had like 150% chance of getting cancer, being diagnosed with cancer. I had a friend that did a raw vegan diet, 20 years remission, had thyroid cancer, never had surgery. I'm like, that's what I'm doing.
Hey, welcome to another juicy episode of This Week in BPS, the weekly live stream show where we explore all things BPS, also known as Black people shit. Usually you are greeted by the one and only beautiful Christy Ferris, but Sister Girl is working on location still for the third season of Monogamy in New Mexico. So she may pop in for a cameo, but either way, we send her some big love, big love. In the meantime, we are going to hold things down. We have a great show planned with a few surprises. If this is your first time, please know that you are now officially part of the show. That's right. All of your questions and comments are live and needed to help our show keep going. If you have seen our show before, then welcome back. We are always so happy to see you, and already see in the audience Tori, Yoli, hey y'all, and Ken. Is that Ken all the way from the Bahamas? I'm not quite sure, but either way, we're gonna find that out too. But let me bring in my main man, Abdul. Come on in, Abdul. How you doing today?
So it's me and you today, huh? It's like the water roses. Yeah.
You think we'll be able to do it?
We'll figure it out.
We'll find
out in 45 minutes.
All right. So for those of you who have joined us, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, you follow, and especially if you're having a good time, make sure you share the love so your friends can join in on the party as well. So me and Abdul today, we knew we were going to be missing Christy because she is doing big things in New Mexico with the third season again of Monogamy. And we were trying to figure out what we would do to get along, because if you know anything about the show, sometimes it's Team Janora versus Team Abdul. Team Janora, in my opinion, is always winning and running things. I don't know.
That's where the alcohol comes in. I'm assuming that's where the delusional alcohol comes in. So
oh, Lord.
I'll let you have it.
Well,
hey, Yoli.
Abdul and I both realized that we have siblings in similar fields. My brother is in banking on the commercial mortgage side. And Abdul, what does your brother do over there?
My brother is on the investment side of banking. He's a vice president of a Fortune 500 company. I would like to read this because my brother's very, he pushes it down, but my brother is a very impressive person, and he's too humble to talk about himself, so I want to do it at the particular moment. James LeGrand is a Black vice president at a Fortune 500 company on Wall Street investment bank. He's been in corporate America almost 30 years and has managed multi-million-dollar budgets and multi-billion-dollar asset conversions. James is a master of Shaolin Kungfu, so don't mess with him because he can fight, and the winner of multiple awards within the financial service industry. He's also the author of the book Evolve and 10 Things I Told My Kid About Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. He's also the co-author of a book that he and I wrote together called Ignorance is Contagious. So please welcome my brother, James W. LeGrand.
Now, wait now.
Hello.
James W.
Okay. Now,
I'm not getting
wait.
jumped to show. I'm not getting jumped to show.
Already. So, James, welcome. Happy to have you. We about to get to you, but I'm just trying to have some dialogue and banter about brothers and how we came up on this. And you snuck some one-upness in on me, done officially introduced your brother and brought him in the show.
I
Y'all
figured,
see how Abdul does? Do y'all see how Abdul does?
Listen, normally it's like 5 McDuffies against 1 Majid, and I figured this would be a good time to even out the playing field. Even though I know your brother's about to jump in a few seconds as well, and I actually got a chance to speak to him after behind the scenes. Very nice guy. I'm not sure how you two are related, so I would like to know the history within that that connection. If he's ebony, you're ivory, I'm assuming.
Abdul, us McDuffies run tight. In fact, I'm going to shout out the McDuffies watching from home. I got my folks, James and Nora, which, by the way, is how I got my name, if you didn't know that by now. We also have Jamel representing, Jacoby representing, but James started off the party. He is the oldest of the 4 of the McDuffies, and yeah, we run tight, so don't sleep. So with that, I guess I am forced to jump ahead in the script and introduce my brother, but I don't mind because the more McDuffies, the merrier. So in terms of my brother, he is currently the community lending area manager for the Mid-Atlantic region for U.S. Bank. Previously, he has served as the senior vice president manager of diverse lending for First Citizens Bank and diverse lending business development manager for Bank of America's Mid-Atlantic region. He is a proud Aggie and alumnus of North Carolina A&T State University, where he actually received his Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering. He absolutely flipped the script, though, and is running big things back in the Mid-Atlantic region, steady in my hometown, our hometown of Durham, North Carolina. We're always representing the Bull City, but let's bring him on in. James McDuffie, come on in this virtual room.
This is going to be fun. Glad to be here.
Hey, did you guys notice that in the picture you guys have on the exact same tie? Is that like a coincidence or is that like a banker thing? You can literally have on the exact same tie.
Only you would notice that.
Oh, yes, Abdul. Yes, Abdul.
No, that's the Obama. That's what I call it. That's the Obama.
Is that right?
It's cool but professional. So it doesn't cause anyone to get overly aggravated or intimidated. So it's just a nice. And one of those things I do as a Black man in business. I know that I come across as very intimidating. So I have to soften that with the color of my ties. When I decide I have to be intimidating, I bring out the power tie, the red.
Correct.
What do you think, James?
Agree 100%. I'm also a Inroads alumnus, and they teach you the various colors of ties, how to dress, how to, as he said, soften your approach. It's a corporate color, and depending upon the statement we want to make, it's all about the tie. And so in that one, we didn't want to be offensive. We want to be classy, polished. They said if we're in certain meetings, you'll notice the tie changes. I don't know if you noticed even on the political side, when your politicians are on the big podium, they have on the red tie. So you watch your news announcers, notice the color of their tie and the topic of the day. So it all kind of plays together.
Okay.
I don't know if I would survive in that world. I got a shaved head, a Wu-Tang shirt, and tattoos. I don't know if I could decide what color tie I'm going to wear to not make white people scared of me.
Oh boy, that means don't speak either, Abdul. And I don't think I've ever seen you in anything other than black. You swear out you love colors, but I've only seen
I have a lot of colors.
T-shirts.
I literally have a lot of colorful clothing. I was raised in the 90s.
All right, and definitely again want to shout out the folks who have already checked in. We've got again Kenny. Hey, how you doing? We have got Yolanda, which actually she was a previous guest on the show representing the real estate market here in Los Angeles. Tori Overton Littlejohn. Hey, BPS. She is representing big time in the commercial real estate industry. She is a force to be reckoned with. And yeah, we are just so happy to see all of you all. Russell, representing the Aggies here. Hey, Russell. Also, one other thing about my brother, if you have not noticed, he is a proud member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. And then we even have Jack. What's up, Jack? Welcome. Nice to see you. All right. Well, our first segment is always hot topics and what is trending. And so we thought we would invite the James McDuffie and James LeGrand to be part of that conversation as well. And kicking off our hot topics is the passing of civil rights icon Vernon Jordan. He passed away this week. He was a leading force in the civil rights movement, was president of the National Urban League in the 70s, close friend and advisor to President Bill Clinton, and definitely one of the great champions of racial and economic justice. He passed away peacefully, surrounded by loved ones. So God bless you and thank you for your life and your legacy, Vernon Jordan. What do you guys think about Jordan? Any particular stories or anything stand out about his life and legacy to you all?
He was an Omega man. We can start with that one.
Okay.
Therefore, fine individual.
So guys, for some reason, I can't hear you guys. I think I can hear Abdul. I can't hear anybody else. I'm sorry.
Okay. I thought, you know what? I thought that was a lead up because you were an alpha or a kappa or something. But you can't hear us. Okay. Maybe we can get our associate producer, Martika, to help you.
Guys, can you hear me at all?
We can hear you.
But,
okay.
But it's important that you hear us.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you can't
and
hear
Abdul,
us,
I had nothing to do with
I
this.
can't hear anybody else. I hear you only.
dang on McDuffies.
All right. Okay, so Martika is going to help you out behind the scenes, but we're going to keep this conversation going. So James, you were saying that Vernon Jordan was an Omega man. Please continue.
As an Omega man, I mean, look at the things that he did throughout the course of his life. I don't know if we want to go back, but backstage, Abdul had an interesting position on Vernon Jordan. And I kind of think it'd be great to kind of pick that up here because it seemed to be very interactive. I had some questions about it as well, but he did speak a lot to his history. So if we could recap that, I think that'd be set the stage for some good conversation around it.
Okay, go for it, Abdul.
I was just saying that. So when Vernon Jordan first started off, he had like all the black jobs. He was the Urban League. He was NAACP. He was United Negro College Funds. He got shot by a white supremacist in like 1980 because of his civil rights efforts. And then he gets with the Clintons even before the Clintons, he starts working in corporate America. And then I don't know if he veers to like this vicious capitalist side, but he starts entering the Bilderberg conferences. He's the first black man to, I believe, be invited to the Bilderberg conference. And the Bilderberg conference, if anybody doesn't know, it's a conference given by Europe and North America. They talk about financial issues. They talk about issues stating in a bunch of stuff. And people say that they are part of the globalist agenda to destroy society because they are the hidden hand that literally runs everything. And Vernon Jordan sort of wholeheartedly went down that road. He started hanging out with the guy from Xerox who was a billionaire. He started hanging out with these other billionaires, and and maybe I don't know this for sure, but his civil rights efforts started to lag in the later part, and he became more of a capitalist from my understanding of everything I saw, because he could be doing stuff behind the scenes I have no idea of. And that's fair business. But
and to that point, I think when you look at the transition of his life, look at how eventually came a portion of the president of the Urban League. Yeah. And I think all those things happened around the same time. And when you look at what the Urban League's purpose is, those connections he had from corporate America helped kind of advance the Urban League. So I don't want to say that he left his roots as much as he was now in a new position based off of those relationships to take advantage of new opportunities to kind of further the cause on the Urban League. So I don't view it as as I said, I guess alluding to, is there some master conspiracy that?
Okay, but but you and I both know that, like, the Koch brothers did it in terms of they started helping out Black organizations to change the image. It's always freaking Trump did it when he was in office, when he gave money to the HBCUs. Like, there's always been a part of these globalists and these elites that they will do charitable organizations so they won't look too bad, it seems like, or that they have a hand in directing the whereabouts or the actions of groups, because they did because leading up to Byron Allen's lawsuit with Comcast. Was it Comcast? It was Comcast. And he took it all the way to the Supreme Court. The ones behind the scenes, it was Comcast giving money to Al Sharpton's and the Rainbow Coalitions and putting up several Black shows so that they wouldn't look bad, even though the majority of business they did, they excluded Black people from it. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yep, and I agree with part of that. I agree with the large part that I think that there are entities, and that's part of the control piece. When you have those that are in power, realize in order to stay in power, that it gives them kind of a chip to play to manipulate some things. So I think there was some give and take there. Mm-hmm. I feel that Vernon and anyone actually in these roles take what they can to advance where they can, but there is some trade-off that's involved. And I think that trade-off might be part of this master conspiracy that you see from like the Koch brothers and Trump. So there's a give and take at the higher up to where they do give some to maintain that control. But mm-hmm. those that are trying to I guess, achieve or grow have to kind of go through that whole soul search. Do I sell my soul to the devil to get where I need to be? So, but is there an answer to that? I don't know, but I think that there is some of that took place.
What's the fine line? And James, I want to get to you after this when we're talking about Vernon Jordan and his legacy. But what is the fine line between the spook who sat by the door and believing you're doing something to help your people, even though you're subvertingly doing something against them? Like, there's a really fine line that these guys walk, where it could look like they're trying to help their community, even though they got a hidden agenda, or they could be the spook who sat by the door who's getting all the information and then giving it back to the people in the neighborhood. I don't know what side of that Vernon Jordan sits on.
Well, either side, so much positive has come from his actions and his dedication. So I'm just going to leave it at that and let that man rest in peace and in love. How does that sound?
I remember when Abdul and I first started learning about Vernon Jordan, and Abdul will remember this. I always said, I want to be him, meaning he was just a perfect middleman. You know, he had a great advisory role working with Clinton. He was behind the scenes. He wasn't out front, but he was able to lend his intellect to help shape policy. And I always liked that about him. So regardless of his reasoning, regardless of all the other things, for me, he was an inspiration as a Black figure, a Black powerful figure in the White House, highly intelligent, and had the ear of the president. So I always found that, you know, something to be inspired by.
He played the game well. That's what it boils down to. He played the game well and succeeded with what he's done. So for that, you definitely give him credit.
Absolutely.
So here. Thank you for your life, Vernon Jordan. May you rest in peace and power. Yeah. All right. So before we hop into our next hot topic, just want to shout out folks who have joined us. We have Thornton in the house. What's up, fam? Joseph, hello. Hey, y'all. Yoli C. Yolanda gave you a shout out. James, an electrical engineer prior to getting into real estate. Shout out to your big brother. Thank you for that family McDuffie love. And we also have Corey in the house. What's up, Corey? Hey. Okay, so this past Sunday, we had the Golden Globes. Black folks came away with some awards. We had Daniel Kaluuya, who won for Best Supporting Actor for Judas and the Black Messiah. We had John Boyega, who came away with the Best Supporting TV Actor for Small Axe. Chadwick Boseman, resting in power right now, lead actor in a drama for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And last but definitely not least, Andra Day, who won for lead actress in a drama film. She's actually, or for the United States versus Billie Holiday, and she is actually the second Black woman to ever even win in this category. So it seemed like Black folks was shining and winning, but turns out that the Hollywood Foreign Press, the folks who give out the Golden Globes, out of 87 members, 0 are Black. So how does that fit into, it seems like we're winning, but behind the scenes, we're not represented? Who wants to start?
I'll start. So
okay.
You said it exactly right. So at all different levels of power, we are underrepresented. So coming from corporate America, up to the vice president level, there's great diversity because those are the people who are pushing the buttons and doing the work. But once you get to vice president and above, you start seeing numbers like 4%, racial diversity, like 4% Black people. So we still continue to have committees, to continue to have positions, continue to have places of power where the door is still not open completely. Now, what happened last year really helped in a bad way, meaning George Floyd, for whatever reason, it was his murder that actually triggered this real need for all companies across all spectrums in industry to really try to better diversify their boards, their management, as well as the people that just work in the company. So I've seen in my own company where I currently work, as well as other companies around Wall Street, this almost need now, this fire to diversify, because now our shareholders are looking for that diversity, and our companies just don't have it. So they're going out now trying to recruit. Being Black and in business right now is in style. So anyone who's in business and Black, get your resumes dusted off. You can make a little bit more money right now. They're looking for you because they're trying to diversify. And I think the Golden Globes was a really good example of how that good old boy network still stays intact, even in an environment like we have today, where we've never been more diverse, never been better accepted, never had better access. Yet you still have something like that, 86 members of a committee and no Black representation.
What do you think about that, J Mac?
So, he took it deeper when you go to corporate America. I'll start with Black Lives Matter. Now, they do. It's a trend. It's hot. Is it truly a trend? Is it something that's going to pass? Time will tell. It is a hot button now. There's plenty of opportunity that at least we are given a chance to take advantage of, or at least we're in the conversation for now. So am I convinced and sold that this is truly something that will stay? Time will tell. But as it relates to the Golden Globe, I got a question for you since you're in Hollywood. It was called out in fun during the Golden Globe. They talked about it. They laughed about it. They joked about it. Will that be taken serious, or will that be taken as kind of, again, one of those passing joke or punchlines, since it came from the host of the show? And it was entertaining in how they did it. It was a call out without really being in your face. I think that the movement that happened with the Oscars, which was, when they really talked about the movies that were snubbed and there were no Black winners and all that, Oscars got pretty big with how they handled their concerns on diversity. This, I don't know, is going to be given the same kind of credence or attention, especially since it's behind the scenes, and they can easily say, "Well, hey, look at all the movies it won." So I don't know how Hollywood is. If it's like corporate America, I'm still waiting to see what's going to happen next year. It's the powers that be. How much will they impact it by it? How much is it going to impact their industry, their bottom line? It's still a world driven by the dollar. Oscars, when they got hit in the pocket. They got hit, straight square on. I don't know if this is going to receive the same kind of attention because of, again, the balance and look who won. They've got it now. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. What do you think, Abdul?
I've seen this play before. They did it in the 90s when they were getting hit left and right. We're talking about diversity, and then they put on all these Black shows, and the Black shows built up the CW, they build up NBC, they build up all these other state channels, and then slowly but surely they started getting picked off left and right until there was maybe like 1 or 2 shows on there. The only difference now than back then, and it's more of an Oscar thing, is that now they have these diversity inclusion practices that you have to have in order to get nominated. So you have to have X amount of people working on the staff. So that might be something. I don't know. My other concern is, and I know this particular people who won are split between Africans from Britain and African Americans who won, but I don't know if you agree or disagree with me on this one, but I seem to see a lot of limited lead roles for African Americans playing African American roles, and it seems to be like weighing, and they're taking all these British actors. It's like what they did with the rappers at one point, when they had all the rappers playing all the major roles. Then Samuel L. Jackson had a beef about it, and then they started bringing back actors. Now it seems like this British wave is coming in and taking over all of the roles. And I know people might not think that means something, but it kind of does. It really does.
Now, this is just a quick aside. Did you guys see Saturday Night Live? It wasn't this past episode, but last week's episode. It was with the English UK Black actors. It was and then they had Ice Cube pretending that he was from the UK. That was what was in and what was popular. Oh shucks, am I frozen?
No, you're fine.
Oh, okay. It was really funny. So go back and watch it. But I wish, Abdul, that I could talk more on that, but I want to make sure that what I say is really based in fact. I don't know if they had the same amount or more Black actors that were African American versus English American. How Black? What do they call themselves over there? Black from England.
Yeah,
I don't know what
Black
the Black Brits. I don't know if it just happened to be that Daniel, for example, was just the best, because brother held it down. I don't know if you. I know we talked about Judas and the Black Messiah, but James and James, I don't know if you all have seen it, but he crushed the role. I can't even imagine anybody else in that role.
I thought John David Washington probably would have been a better. He even looks like him more. That's
interesting. Well, yeah. I just want to base whatever my comments are on fact, and I have to look at numbers to see like if that's true or if it's really they just won out. So I don't know.
There was a documentary. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was really focused on the fact of the wave of Black actors that are coming from Britain. Mm-hmm. The fact that they're classically trained. They say the ones that are here aren't here by accident. The ones that are here have gone through years of theatrical training. They've gone through some of the top schools over in Britain. They've got tons and tons of training where a lot of the actors over here don't. Doesn't mean they're better or worse.
That's the thing. I don't know if that's true.
I don't either. I just remember that was a documentary that's what.
Yeah, because I know what you're talking about. I know the documentary you're talking about. But I know if you look at the ones out here, between the ones that go to Yale acting schools, the ones who are classically trained via Juilliard, the ones who are classically trained via all these other places, I don't know if that's the case. And if you look throughout, like let's look at like this year and a half alone, they a Brit woman played Harriet Tubman, a British man played Malcolm X. A British man played Judas Kaluuya's part in Judas Black Messiah. Yep. A British man played what was the other one? That was 12 Years a Slave, but that's a whole nother. But I mean, like if you look down the list, it's not a question.
You're seeing the same ones over and over again too. So
yeah. Which also is something that happens whether you are Black Brit or an American Black actor.
That
seems to be. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Well, one face that we may or may not see as a new logo for the NBA is Kobe Bryant. So we've got Kyrie Irving. Moving on to our next topic. Kyrie Irving wants Kobe Bryant on the NBA logo. He recently posted this logo by the designer Tyson Beck on Instagram and said, "It's got to happen. I don't care what anybody says. Black Kings built the league." So, Abdul, I know you are all things Kobe Bryant, so I'm going to let you kick off this conversation.
I believe I'm 100% for it. I don't think that Jerry West should be the face of the league anymore. Just from my 45 years on Earth, black men have been dominating the league since '75 and dominating in a major way. They've been the draw. They pull in the jersey sales. They pull in the ticket sales. They're all the ones doing all the acrobatic, mind-boggling stuff that you can't see, jumping through the roof. It's season after season after season after season. So I do think that the face of the league should represent it. The only other person I thought that had a chance to do it was Jordan. And the only reason Jordan couldn't do it because the Jumpman logo is owned by Nike. So Nike wouldn't allow the NBA to take that logo because he's the only other face other than Kobe I could see being the face of the league. So that's my take on
it. As a lifelong Laker fan and a Kobe fan, I am biased. I admit that 100%. But I completely agree with everything Abdul said. Jerry West was a representative of the NBA in yesteryear. For today's modern NBA, it's Kobe. Period. I mean, just the way you showed that logo, the look, the athleticism, the tattoos, everything screams today's NBA. And it's time to update the logo. It should be Kobe. No kid in the playground shoots a jump shot and says Jerry West.
Yeah.
They say Kobe. Right?
It definitely needs a facelift. I think it is a different league now than it has ever been before, even more so now. I am a Jordan fan. I like Kobe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, for me, if you're really going to update it going forward, Kobe's worthy. But I would think of what would LeBron look like. LeBron is the face of the league right now. Jordan, I agree. It would have been Jordan for me all day long, but even Jordan isn't in the current era. So if you're going to update it today, the most impactful player in today's game, and again, this is today moving forward because there's going to be another break and then another 20, 30 years, there's going to be another somebody coming along. But for right now, give me LeBron. Let's figure out what a LeBron picture would look like. I think Kobe is deserving, not saying he's not, but I also feel that the tragic accident that happened is what thrust him into this conversation more so than him and kind of where the league is right now. So as a Laker fan, which I'm not, if you're a Laker fan, you can go with LeBron too. But I think going forward, I'm granted, growing up in Carolina as a Tar Heel fan, we like Tar Heels wherever they go in the NBA. So I don't really have a team yet. Hornets make it tough. But I think when you really want to put a timestamp in and move forward from now, give me the most impactful player right now. And right now is LeBron.
The only thing I would disagree to that is I don't think the person should be playing as they become the face of the league. I think that if you want to give LeBron that nod after he checks out and retires, by all means, I don't disagree with you too much on it. But I do think Kobe as a player represents a lot of like it's the Mamba mentality. And of course his death does play a big part of it. So I do think just giving him that nod because he died. Someone says, what about AI? I don't know. He did change the game, but he had a big drop off. Kobe was strong for 20 plus. It was 20 even. AI had a good run when he was in Philly, but once he went to Denver and then he went to I forgot the other team played after Denver, but it was a drastic drop off. But I think AI might be one of the best of the little men, if that's what you want to call him.
And there's drama around his name too. There's no drama around Kobe. And
no,
to your point, if I don't make one prior to LeBron, well,
that's not quite true, right? I'm a Kobe fan. I'm a Kobe fan. Yeah,
there was an accusation.
I admit there's drama around his name. But the thing I like about Kobe, right? And I agree with Abdul's point also that it shouldn't be a current player. That came to mind right away. But also, part of Kobe's drama is a redemption story, right? He came into the league, from high school. He was squeaky clean. He was getting autographs from all the other players during his first All-Star game, right? And he was incredible. Then he goes through the everything that he went through. He becomes known for that Mamba mentality, and he retires on 60 points in his very last game. I mean, from beginning to end, he was masterful. So that's why I think Kobe more than anyone else, other than Jordan. I agree with you on Jordan too. I named my son Jordan because I like Jordan so much. That's facts,
All
right?
right.
So no hate to Jordan, but I do think Kobe's the right person at this time.
Well, we
Just two
have
things.
Russell.
Yeah.
I was just going to say Russell, who thinks Magic, and we've got Jack here, who is throwing out Wilt Chamberlain.
If Wilt played in this league right now, they'd dunk on his head left and right. Like a little man, Westbrook would dunk on his head. Wilt was athletic and Wilt was strong, but Wilt was big and strong for the 60s and the 50s. These guys are, I've seen LeBron James up close and person in a game courtside. To say that the guy is a physical freak is an understatement. The guy had veins in his calves going down to his his Achilles. Like I was that close, and he like the way he could jump, and then I don't think Will could have took Shaq. So if Will can't take Shaq, he's this new league with that. Shaq would have destroyed Will. Shaq would have just too big, too strong. First between Shaq and Olajuwon.
They were the same. I think Shaq's thing. Shaq had nothing but being bigger than everybody, going to the goal. Wilt could shoot. Akeem could shoot. Look at Akeem and Shaq. Shaq did not destroy Akeem.
Well,
I don't think. Okay, I know we got to move on. This is not a sports.
Yes, I am stepping in because I think y'all can talk basketball all day. We got to talk banking. We got a lot to talk about. So we're gonna wrap this up. I definitely want to shout out new folks who have joined us. Hello and welcome, Brian. We also had who checked in with the AI conversation, although I think AI was really because he was good looking. I took that from the hearts in the comment. But we got Monica in the house. Hey, Monica. And last but not least, our love for Tangerine. Hey,
Tangerine.
girl. If y'all haven't checked out Tangerine's show, she's got one on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. She is definitely holding it down. We love you. And she's got a new show. She's on the Millennials. I think that's what it's called.
Yes, Millennials on All Black.
Yes. And she says, ooh, lots of yummy male melanin on my screen. So that's a shout out to the Jameses, and the McDuffie fam is in the house. Absolutely, Tangerine. Thank you for being here too. All right, so our last hot topic is actually the perfect segue to talk about banking and creating wealth, specifically generational wealth in our communities. It is actually Abdul's favorite topic, which is reparations. So Biden said that he supports the creation of a commission to study and develop a proposal for reparations. But Biden senior advisor Cedric Richmond said this week that we don't want to wait, that we need to start acting now. And so this also takes place the same week as we have the first city, Evanston, Illinois, which is a little bit north of Chicago, to actually fund reparations. So let's talk about the whole idea of reparations. If you think we can wait, if you think we need this commission, where we fit as a society in this huge conversation about wealth, which is really the gap and the lack thereof between Black folks and others. So James McDuffie, we're going to start with you on this conversation.
All right. So I feel like Abdul on this one, trying to be a little controversial. Reparations, I think there's a need and there's a place. The concern is, how are they distributed? To the individuals, I'm dead set against. I don't think that that's really going to help us as a people. I think when you look at reparations, you're really looking at how do we help us as a race, as being Black in America, help us try to level the playing field to some degree, if not level, at least catch up with what's been going on all these years. So when you look at reparations, I'm looking at investing into community programs, investing into education, investing into ways to support the disenfranchised through government programs where the government has set aside funds specifically to help those that are, quote, deemed or due the reparation. I think most people, when they hear it, they say, well, yeah, I need my, 40 acres and a mule, or I need my check, give me my 5,000, whether it's a monetary amount. I think that's the very wrong thing to do. I think if you really want to address the inequalities and help level the playing field, provide us with ways to improve our school systems that are struggling, the ones that are behind the ones on the other side of town. How do I put together programs so that, because I haven't had an opportunity to save for college, I don't have that wealth in my family lineage. What can you do to give me a chance to kind of catch up? Give me the opportunity. Promote programs that provide opportunities that we're normally kept out of and away from due to the disparity that took place for all these years. So reparations, yes, but it's really structured programs that are clearly defined and targeted to truly help the inequalities that have really grown and are still growing over the years.
All right. James LeGrand, are you Team Abdul over there? What are your thoughts?
So here, before we talk about if reparations, let's talk first about why reparations. So let's go. I'm going to start with slavery and just bring it forward. So quick history. We all know what slavery was. When slavery was abolished by Lincoln, it was only abolished for the states that were not in the Union. So a state like Tennessee still had slaves even after the Emancipation Proclamation. Point one. Point two, states like Texas, even after slavery was abolished, still continued 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation to have slaves because they were waiting for certain seasons to be done. And then when that backbreaking work was done, then the slaves were told, oh, by the way, now you're free. So what happened after slaves were freed? After slaves were freed, they started passing laws in different states called vagrancy laws. If you were found on the street and you didn't have a job, right, and you were no longer a slave, they picked you up for vagrancy, put you in the penal system, and now you were back working for free again. Instead of for a slave master, now you're working for the penal system. That went on for a long time. Then you have the Jim Crow era, right? Jim Crow era had something called redlining, where Black people were not allowed to have access to financial systems. So you couldn't get a loan, you couldn't get insurance, you couldn't get access to a lot of the help that everyone else could get. So you were literally, there were laws written where you couldn't own property in certain places, right? You couldn't have access to the best schools. All these different things were happening, right? So now you're not in a good school system. You can't get the education that you want. You still can't vote, right? All these different things were happening to keep Black people within a container. So now we get rid of Jim Crow, and then we move into the 70s and 80s, drugs, right? So now you have laws that are written that make it harder for a Black person than anyone else. Let's just take crack cocaine for a minute. You have cocaine, and then you have crack. If you were using cocaine, you were most likely a Caucasian, right? The sentencing for Caucasians using cocaine were significantly lighter than someone who got caught for crack, which was most likely a Black person. And then they came up with other things like 3 strikes, you're out. So if you get your 3rd strike, now you're absolutely going to jail and you're going to serve double the maximum sentence, excuse me. So again, you're back in jail. So a lot of those different laws after slavery continued to disenfranchise Black people, to lock us out of the financial system and literally lock us up. So do we need reparations? Yes, right? There's been harm done to a population of people for over 4 centuries, right? We have a late start. One of the best ways to pass generation from wealth from one generation to another is through property, right? Being able to own property. We weren't allowed to own property in a meaningful way for a very long time. So you've got families who have had generations of head start before Black people, right? So do we need reparations? Yes. The next question is, how reparations? How would you do it? And I think this is what gets to James McDuffie's point. The problem with how do you identify the population of people that should get it, right? So all of us here look Black, right? But I know Black people that don't look Black. I have a relative, right, who is Black, does not look Black, right? Should she get reparations? There are other people who can prove their bloodline, right? What's our test? So now, and that's the problem, right? What is the rule that will be written that will say this person should get reparations, this person shouldn't? Second issue, how much should you get, right? So let's say we figure that part out. How much is this lack of a head start? How much is the damage that has been done consistently for centuries worth? How do you put a price on that,
right? So here we are at a time where we have a Senate that probably is not going to really pass helping people with COVID across multiple racial guidelines, multiple races, right? They're talking about $1,400. That's not a lot to a family who's been out of work for a year, right? But they make it sound like it's the biggest thing in the world. How big do you think the reparation will be? So who gets it? How much will it be? So to me, the bigger thing that I would say is, rather than waiting for a handout, whether it happens or not, you have to take personal ownership for where you stand right now. Make that decision today that you can do whatever it takes to learn what you need to learn to do better for your life. No one's coming to save you. It's time to give that up. And if they do try to come to save you, it's not going to be enough. It'll never be enough. So today, if you haven't already made this decision, make it right now. You're going to be what you decide you're going to be. If you don't know how to do it, find some books and get there, right? The internet has full of free information. One night, don't watch your favorite show. Do some research, but you can do this. I can't tell you how many times there were things that I didn't know how to do. I figured it out. That's what got me where I am. No, I knew from a long time ago, no one's here to save me. No one cares whether I live or die, but me. Of course, my family does, my brother does. But you know what I'm saying? No one's going to invest the time in me that I'm willing to invest in me. Until you make that commitment for yourself, nothing, and I mean nothing, is going to happen.
So can I comment on that real quick?
Sure, James.
I think that part is true. I mean, you know, let's look at James McDuffie, our father, from where he came from. You want to hear a heartfelt story of someone that, you know, like he's on here now, so you hear I'll idolize him. We don't tell him often about where he came from, what he went through, and where he ended up. And to your point, no one's going to make it happen but you. He has brothers that had the same opportunity but didn't, or were in the same place. What I'll go with reparations, and there's a difference in why I feel that there's a need. It's not necessarily for the handout. I go back to the programs. Opportunities. That right now is the biggest difference, or the biggest disparity between Black people and other races. The opportunities that we're afforded for wealth building, the opportunities we're afforded for education, the opportunities that we're afforded for anything that can help us be that, do all those things you talked about, are not equal. They're not even close to fair. So if you're looking at reparations, that's where I say put it towards a program that create the opportunity. The drive that someone has to be successful has nothing to do with the reparations, but it's all in their success. Just because the opportunity is there doesn't mean that they're going to be successful. There are a lot of people that are born with the silver spoon, but do nothing with their lives. They had opportunities they didn't take advantage of. So that internal drive is something that we as a people and us as a family unit must instill in all of those that we put our hands on and can reach and touch, because that's really going to be the difference maker to truly create what we need for any form of equality. But I feel reparations are all about creating the opportunities that will give us at least a chance to get there without having to climb all those mountains, all those hills that we do, so that we may have more end up crossing at the end because they were given opportunities. And I used to, I look at kids and I see them, I call it the fishbowl effect. They see what's in their fishbowl. It's a big world we live in, but in my fishbowl, if the ones that I idolize or the ones that I want to be are the ones that have the shiny car, how did they get it? Or all I see are, you know, the new toy or the new whatever the latest thing that's bright and shiny is as their objective. They don't have an opportunity to know that there's so much more in this big world we live in. So it's creating that awareness, creating an opportunity. I know when we get into, and Janora, this could help you with transition into wealth building. Everything is built on the cornerstone of education. Wealth building starts with education, and you don't have to have $1 million to start wealth building. You can start it with a penny you find on the street, and I'm sure you'll speak to that much better than I can. But it's the opportunities that are afforded that I'm hoping that when they discuss reparations, first off, I want them to find another name. Because reparations, similar to Black Lives Matter, creates a connotation that people automatically reject and has nothing to do with that. Defund the police had nothing to do with saying we don't want police. It was the wrong words that were chosen. I think the same challenge is going to be there with reparations. There's a way to commit to the programs, commit to the communities, commit to the people to give them the opportunity in a way that comes across in a non-threatening manner to most. Because right now, I think White people are scared or offended or threatened by that term. Find another word. There's a lot of power in words, as we always hear. Find another word that gives us the meaning and the acceptance needed as we continue to do things to create opportunity and educate, because it's that education that's going to create and promote that drive that you're referring to. That's really the key to everyone's success.
So, Abdul, thank you both Jameses for that. Abdul's been making faces up in that corner. Abdul, before I get to you and your comeback with this conversation, yes, we easily transition into a practical mode where we hear from both Jameses about creating wealth, the education, finding those opportunities and having it within us to take advantage of them. I just want to shout out and recognize some of these comments that are coming in. Yes. Jack says his proposal is to raise gas tax by 25 cents and use 5 cents of tax for 20 years to fund. That's a really interesting idea, Jack. Yolanda says, I agree with James wholeheartedly. Jack, back to you. You support Robert Smith's proposal. And Jack also threw up article on reparations. Yoli says to help with financial harm that happened to our people. How about this? How about invest into total down payment coverages toward buying homes or investment properties like duplexes and triplexes if one is occupied by the buyer? That's really interesting, James. It'll be interesting, James McDuffie, to hear your take on that, since you're on the mortgage end of that. CIA brought crack to the hood to fund Contras, and then they had war on drugs and private prison to lock us up. Yes, I know James LeGrand spoke to that. Specifically, I agree with James LeGrand wholeheartedly. He is spot on. So both Jameses, you are kicking knowledge and getting a lot of love. Jack seems to think in terms of finding out who gets reparations. Easy DNA test should tell you who to get it. You must be Team Abdul today, Jack. Personal responsibility is disconnected from holding U.S. accountable. Oh yeah, you're Abdul for sure. And I'm sure Abdul's just about to get to that. And last but not least, from Thornton, he thinks we need to reduce costs for quality education that focuses on skill that build the community. This is awesome. And again, you all are definitely part of this show. So I just want to make sure I shout you all out. And we really appreciate your comments. Keep them coming. All right, Abdul.
Yes. So I agree and I disagree with both James are saying. First of all, I do believe there needs to be a check cut. I don't believe that this is a handout. This is a debt. This is a, you can call it a debt for crimes against humanity, call it for services rendered, but it's a debt. I don't think that we need to change the wheel or change the playbook when it comes to Black people. There's already two separate standards that have already been proposed with regards to reparation. You can either use the 1952 version of the Jewish material claims against the Germans, that acts for finances, that acts for land, that acts for technology transfers. Matter of fact, if you look in 2013, CARICOM, which is the Caribbean community that established it's like Jamaica collectively together. They're called CARICOM. They came together in '76. They pulled out a reparations bill to Europe, specifically French and the British, and they have a 10-point program that you can look up that shows what they asked for with regards to reparation, whether it was a technology transfer, whether it was land, an apology. But there needs to be a check, because every other form of reparations got cut a check. 89, the Japanese got it. 52, the Germans got it. The Native Americans got they got a land grant in 60, I can't remember the year about it, but I mean, there was money designated to people to put in their pocket, and I don't believe that they should change the playbook for us. It seems like every time, the things that frustrate me when these reparation conversations come up is that every time it's a standard protocol that happens for groups of people, that there's a playbook that always happens. You can use The way the Germans did it from World War I, when they had to give money back to the Russians, you can use the German Jews for World War II. When they had to give back to the Jews, you can give it to the Armenians when they got money from the Turks for that Holocaust. Like there's always a playbook, and in it is a amount of money given to people. But then when it comes to us, they try to skirt and not give it to us. And it's like, why is it always changed when it comes to us? The way that you can, the way that you can find out who, I specifically believe that reparations in America should go to only African Americans. That's not a proposal that I came up with. That's a proposal that Dr. Sandy Darity out of Duke University came up with. And he showed how you can use the census to say if you claimed a Black African American within the last 10 years, and there's other like stipends that you have to put in there, you automatically qualify for it. Because if you look at the census, up until 1980, there were only 800,000 Black or Korean people living in the United States when there were like 24 million Black people. Up until 1920, there were only like a couple 100,000 of African and Caribbean people when there were 11 million Black people who suffered from all the sufferings that Black people had to go through. Not to mention, we didn't get the money during the New Deal. We didn't get the money during the Stedhome Act, or the Homestead Act, excuse me. We got shitted on for the redlining. We deserve a check. And the only other part, and I'll stop at this point, is that the only thing I disagree with you within current finances, if you look at it, and you guys can talk to it better than I can, but it seems like inherited wealth is what's getting people past. It's not jobs. It's not education. It's inherited wealth. People passing on money from one generation to another generation. And we don't have that. And we need a surplus of money to be able to have inherited wealth. And it's not going to come from a bunch of us being educated, because I know a bunch of smart people working at UPS because they couldn't get a job and they have some school loans out the wazoo.
So can I speak to that real quick? Because I know we're at top of the hour. We didn't even get to what we wanted to talk about regarding wealth.
We still are. We still are, but absolutely.
I just want to say that there's two fundamental differences or principles that we're talking about, whether it be the check, the money owed. You know, you talked about what is the amount to? Is it 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 that they should give us money owed, money due?
They have a number.
Okay, well, whatever that number is. I guess my thoughts were positioned around ways to address the disparity gaps that are really driving this, that are steadily widening. I think if you cut somebody a check, and this is kind of how I feel about the whole COVID bill, a $1,200 check. Yeah, I'd love to get it. As a matter of fact, I was surprised that I did get one. I was like, wow, okay, this is great. There are those that can make use of it and have needs. So I'm not necessarily downplaying someone's personal situation, but for the long term, once we get the money, once we burn through that money, the disparity, the social injustice, the social inequities are still there.
But I'm saying
but all of those things were the reason or the fault or caused by all the things that James talked about that have taken place over decades. How do you erase those decades? How do you put us in a position where we can do for selves without that playing field is tilted so poorly? And I think cutting a check, though, is something that, again, it's something that's nice to have. It's a $50,000, $60,000 check. That's not going to address. That's not going to give you the wealth, the wealth that you're handing down that you talked about. It's not going to promote equality within the system disparity. So again, it's not a right or wrong.
It's not an either or thing.
No, I agree.
If you look at the proposals from CARICOM, if you look at the proposals from Dr. Sandy Darity, if you look at the proposal from Yvette Carnell out of Atlanta, Antonio Moore out of LA, it is a check, but it's an infrastructure thing as well. CARICOM had technology transfer, they had infrastructure, they had schools, they had, as part of their reparations claim. It wasn't just a check. The Nazis had the same thing. The Armenians had the same thing. The only ones that solely got a check was the Japanese in '89. Everybody else got technology transfers, they got infrastructure, and they got a check. So why are we limiting ourselves to just a check or just infrastructure and education? Why can't we get them both?
I don't think the country can literally afford them. That's all. And again, I'm for them both. I think that the infrastructure, if you give me one or the other, give me the infrastructure. If I can get the check too, great. But when you're looking at the check, they're all, how many African Americans are there? I think you had a number for me. What was it?
Right now, there are 40, almost 41, and out of just specifically African Americans, I believe it's 31.7 or something like that.
Million.
Okay.
So to fund that, and again, I'm trying to think of a solution that can be passed, a solution that can be supported by the country with and by those who are going to be voting on it. To tell we need to give 35 million people $50,000. I don't know how many times you carry the zeros and what that number looks like. That one's not going to fly. But if we talk about what programs can we invest in, whether it be I'm going to invest 50 million, 100 million, 500 million, which is something I think is easily affordable, that will give opportunities for us to really kind of increase our infrastructure and talk about all that technology transfer and all those things that make us there. I want to come up with a solution that can be supported and passed, not something that, yeah, it'd be great if I have it, and then they owe me. Because everything you said was right. There's nothing that I can disagree with. But do you honestly feel that that's something that it will survive and be passed? I don't care who the administration is.
I think you got to force them, and the other part. And I know we got to go, Janora, because I see you
we storming the Capitol next too.
Lincoln. No, I don't think we're storming the Capitol, but I do think that the money that we're asking for, let's just say it's $2 or $3 trillion. That's not even 1% of the defense budget. You give us the defense budget, 1% of the defense budget for like a year, it'll cover the whole cost of it. There are all these ways that people have, very smart people, smarter than me, have came up with to fund this process. You just have to have the will to do it. And my problem is that people don't have the will to do it because it's Black people that they're doing it for. Because they have no problem giving 300 some odd millions to Israel every year. They have no problem, and they get like 20,000 a head in Israel. They have no problem giving the money to Turkey. They have no problem giving the money to every other African nation in aid. But when it comes to Black people, then, why are we giving money? It's like, it's always just a question that comes up, and it's the only reason is because we're Black.
Well,
that's $2 trillion. Go ahead. If you give everybody $50,000, that's almost $2 trillion, and that's just the money. That's not the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And the
I say take $1 trillion, give it to people. Take the other $1 trillion, put it in infrastructure and education.
All right. Well,
they gave the Japanese 20,000 a head. If we can get 20,000 a head, that gives us another $1 trillion.
Not mad at the idea. I just want to get something that, like you said, we want to get it passed. It's got to be something reasonable that can have the buy-in. And I get the fact that, why do we have to back down? But I think we have to also be reasonable with something that can be supported by those in charge, because they're already scared of the word, scared of the term, scared of giving us anything.
But
anyway,
I think I let this conversation go on a little bit longer because I was just excited to have my brother argue with Abdul instead of me argue with Abdul on this topic for so long. And I'm just to transition. Yeah, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man a fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. So that's how I feel on this team McDuffie and
Black male fisherman, you eat forever.
And in terms of personal responsibility and what we can do to move forward on our own, no matter what they give us or not, piggybacking off of James LeGrand's positive words, let's wrap this whole episode up by you both sharing one at a time what you do in the banking industry and what we can do within that segment to most empower ourselves to create wealth and to pass that on to future generations. And but before you start, let me just again give a shout out to everybody in the audience. Thank you. These are amazing comments coming in. Tori says, great discussion, gentlemen. Thank you again for being here, Tori. And Tangerine says, McDuffie fam are always arguing with
No, right?
Abdul.
Can't get away with it.
And then Yoli is thinks that funny. But yeah, so James LeGrand, since we haven't heard from you, since it was going back between James McDuffie and Abdul, you start this off. Tell us what you do, what segment of banking that is, and what we can do and take away from this episode and conversation today.
Sure. My pleasure. So I work in a Wall Street Fortune 500 investment bank, and my role is called program management. I'm entrusted basically to run the major programs of the bank to increase it or build our infrastructure or to do something specifically with our clients. So 2 examples, I managed a $100 billion asset conversion. An asset conversion is when one of our clients decides to leave the current brokerage company that they're with. Think of brokerage as stocks and bonds, a trading platform like that. That company decided to leave that company, our client decided to leave that company and come to our company. So I help manage how that money comes over and then exists on our books, and then how that client uses our services from that point forward. So if you think about it, 100 billion usually will make us about 100 million a year. And then usually our contracts are about 10 years, just to give you an idea of the money that can be made there. Another example is I work with some of our clients in order to make sure they're happy with us. We had a client that we made $24 million a year with in revenue. They weren't happy. I was sent in to figure out why they weren't happy, to understand what they needed from us and to give them a little bit of love and attention. And then in the time that I did work like that, for example, I increased that client from 24 million in revenue per year to over $40 million in revenue per year. So those are just some examples of what I do. I do program management, which just means I get stuff done through other people. So now let's talk specifically about what we as Black people can do to build wealth. And Abdul will know this. I've talked for decades about generational wealth. I've always known since high school that we're starting from behind, right? So I could continue to harp on that, right? We're starting from behind, we deserve something else, all these other things. Or I could channel my energy into actually creating generational wealth. So James McDuffie, I'm sure, is going to talk about real estate. So I'm going to stay away from that. By the way, real estate's one of the fastest and best ways to become a multimillionaire. I'm not going to step on his toes. I know where he's going to go with that. But what I would say is learn how to manage money. And here's what I mean by that. Money is never taught in school. I want you to really think about that. You're taught in school how to pay taxes. You're taught in school how to get a job, and that you need to pay taxes on the money that you make. And you don't even pay taxes, they take taxes, as Chris Rock taught us, right? So, what you need to do is learn the skill of managing money. That starts, number 1, with saving money. Number 2, I'm going to use Warren Buffett's 2 rules. Rule number 1 from Warren Buffett, never lose money. Rule number 2, see rule number 1, right? So you make sure you safely invest your money in a way that it grows. How does money grow? Interest is one way that it can grow, right? They call it the ninth wonder of the world, right? Interest. So find safe ways to invest your money. Investment is not the same as, gambling is not the same as investing, right? So, you don't want to throw your money out there and hope, right? Hope is not a strategy. Really think through the way that you wish to grow your money, and then follow your strategy, follow your plan. Abdul and I, our dad will always say, make a plan
and stick to it
and follow the plan, period, right? But start with making a plan. If you don't have a plan for your money, you're already behind. And there's nothing that's stopping you from making a plan for your money. So what I would say is get on the bandwagon of generational wealth. Start researching what that is and start understanding how to create it. There's multitudes of ways. Starting a business, saving and investing, partnerships. There's so many ways you can do that. And you don't always need a lot of investment money to do that. I started businesses with $150. That's the cost to create the entity, the LLC. The rest of it was thought knowledge. So you can do this. Read the books, do the study, put the work in, and you'll have the results that you're looking for. But number 1, believe you can do it. Just because you haven't been taught it doesn't mean you can't learn it. It's up to you.
All right. Hope y'all taking notes over there. James McDuffie, let's go to you.
All right. Well, everything he said, yes. My role with U.S. Bank is really to ensure that the bank is positioned and focused on supporting all communities as it relates to home ownership. The challenges that I'm faced with when I go into the communities is ensuring that everyone understands the rules of the game, the terms of engagement. What do you need to do? Am I able to do this? What do I have to do? It all starts with everything the other James just shared regarding wealth building, saving, investing, understanding the terms of what does it take to own a home, to get to a home. There's a huge disparity right now amongst Black people and every other race that's out there. Home ownership amongst Black people is in the low 40%. Home ownership amongst white Americans is around 70+%. Home ownership around Hispanics is actually eclipsing the African American percentage. And over the past couple of years, Hispanic home ownership growth has been what's been driving the market. African American home ownership growth has been falling by the wayside. It's been stagnant, I'll say that. So my role with the markets that I cover is really to empower and make aware the opportunities that are out there. Someone talked about investing in funds for down payment. Usually down payment monies exist in every market. There's a lot of money out there to get into the home. People just don't know about it. There's a lot of low down payment programs that exist. People don't know about it. You know, people don't understand why they should own a home. When you look at some of the new, what is it, Gen X, Gen Z, whatever the latest generation is that are coming out of school now, a lot of them don't want to own a home because of the responsibility associated with it, not understanding that it can be the foundation of some of the wealth building that James talked about previously, the importance of it of our communities. I've got a personal, I guess, heart around the importance of what homeownership means to our communities. Because if you look at it, we all grew up, well, I know that me and my siblings grew up in a community that was predominantly Black. Old Farm. Great community, full of a lot of college graduates from North Carolina Central University, a lot of kids the same age. It was a wonderful community. But then the parents, unfortunately, got older as life happens. They kind of passed. The kids assumed the properties, and now these properties that they may own turn into rental properties. When we look at our communities turn into rental properties, we look at the degradation and the end of our communities. Why are they turning into rental properties? Because others that come behind us either are unaware or don't feel that they can purchase a home. And so there's a pride that is lost in the communities that we serve. And again, it goes back to all the things we talked about that are systemic when it comes to reparations and all that. There's not an awareness or understanding of what's needed around credit. That's another area that it's amazing when you talk to people about credit. They don't understand. They blame the banks. Hey, the banks are all discriminate. They don't like Black people. Well, I will say that some of the rules that are written culturally do not address us as a people, but credit score is a credit score. And when I usually go out to talk to people about it, I'll say that, you know, how many of you all have family reunions and you got that one cousin that you know is always gonna come up and ask you for $5. Say he's gonna get you money back, but he ain't paid anyone back yet. That's his credit. So as a bank, you know, they look at what your credit score represents, and that's what it represents. How do you pay people back? If you don't pay them back, is it the bank's fault for not wanting to loan you money? No, but it is an opportunity for us as a bank, if we're not going to promote the education, so you truly understand the rules or the terms of the game. What is it around credit I need to do? What is it around assets I need to have? What is it around the whole home ownership piece? So my role with the bank is to really go out and promote this type of education and awareness, and also hold the bank accountable. Are we in the markets we need to be in to where we're giving the opportunity to those that we serve? The opportunity, again, is really, I think, the big difference right now in a lot of what's going on. So when it comes to, I know you guys heard about redlining, and if you don't know what that was, that's been kind of coming back to some degree, but it's coming back in a different form, where before banks wouldn't lend to people in a certain area because they wanted to keep it white, didn't want Black people living in certain areas. Well, now it's kind of happening in reverse, that these communities are hiking up the taxes around places that they want to have a certain type of people live there. And we're finding it more socioeconomic than race. Race is impacted by socioeconomic because we don't have the same money and assets and wealth building that some of the other races do. So it's kind of a result of that. So my role is to ensure that I'm out there shaking hands, kissing babies, making the proper relationships with the bank to support the communities that we serve, as well as promote as much awareness and education around these topics to try to minimize the gap and promote these opportunities and make everyone aware of what can be in their world as they do go into the whole financial wealth building with home ownership as that cornerstone.
Don't you think? Do we got to go, Janora? Because I'm not sure.
No. I mean, I know we're over. So James, I hope you're okay with time. But I think this is some really important information that we need to talk about. So yes, Abdul, go ahead and ask your question.
So, based on my understanding of the stuff reading, Obama really screwed over Black people with that home affordable modification program that happened like in 2016. It mostly, instead of giving the money to, like what I was saying with regards to like reparations, instead of giving the money directly to the people to help them lower their mortgages, he gave the money to the mortgage service providers, and they took the money, and instead of helping these people, they made more money foreclosing on these homes than they would have if they just got the money from the hemp act. So a lot of homeowners, Black homeowners, tanked because the economy was bad. But Black people really lost their shirt wealth-wise. And if you look at any statistic that goes on with regards to Black people under the Obama administration, Black people took a dive, and he made 11 million white people millionaires. That's like a fact. You can look it up if you don't believe what I'm saying. So don't you think? Let me ask the question then. What is the way around some of these pitfalls that we're talking about, whether it be the Hemp Act or whether it be the fact that people are losing their shirts and people don't have jobs, that's why their credit sucks, or because I think a lot of Black people. So statistically, Black people in America have 2.6% of the money in America. And the rest, 90% is like white people. Then there's like that other 8 or something percent is Spanish and Asian and blah, blah, blah. But out of that 2.6%, 75% go to the top 1% of the black people. And then 90% go to the top 10 of Black people. So you got like point-something% of the money going to the rest of the 90% of Black people, being that to get into the top 10% of Black people, you only have to make over $350,000 a year. So how are these people at the bottom, is my question, who are making 0.6% or so of the money, supposed to get the house and the credit, good credit, and all this other stuff, when it looks like the whole game is rigged?
Let me go back to a couple of things with the HAMP and HARP programs that you're referring to.
Yeah, HARP. Yeah.
So HAMP and HARP were two programs created by the Obama era to address the housing crash in 2008-9.
Yeah, but it was like 16 when it came around. When it was like you're right, 8 and
it was 8 or 9 when the crash.
HAMP and HARP
launched.
Yeah,
and the HAMP and HARP program were launched to address the crash where people weren't paying their mortgages, couldn't pay their mortgages, couldn't find their jobs. The job industry had tanked. So when you look at it, the ones that lost their job, the ones that were most impacted by the economy were Black people.
Yes.
And so that program was really geared to help those that lost their job. Basically, you lost your job. I'm going to come modify your loan, not pay your loan for defer it to the end, do something where you can hang on to your house. The ones impacted mostly were Black people. The ones that we probably couldn't save were Black people. When I say couldn't save, the rules were what the rules were. I didn't. It was tough to hear that some of the stories when you hear, my mom was in the hospital. I lost my job. I had to take the little bit of money I could to afford my house to pay off my mother's hospital bills. Can you help me? Those were the stories that we would hear time in, time out, that your heart would bleed for. But the rules of Hamp and Harp, which were part of the issue, were you qualify if you are current on your mortgage, don't have any money, we'll work it out for you. If you've already missed 4 or 5 months, there's not much we can do. We'll see what we can do with the foreclosure. That's kind of what happened during that era. And because if you look at who was impacted by the economy the most, they were also the ones who this program was built for but could not save. So I don't want to say Obama came and built this thing and really trashed Black people. What it was, and this is where James can help on the investment side of things, where the companies that will go into foreclosure will then bundle them up and sell them on the marketplace and make the millions off of. Well, even in the best of times, guess what the mortgage industry is? We sell mortgages. You bought a house. We bundle that mortgage up, sell it on the backside. They're still making millions off of you. The only difference is you're in your home. We got lights on, and we're not on the losing end of it. So I want to say that the losing end of it came from more so from the crash of the economy. And at that time, prior to that, in 2004, 2005, there were loan programs that were created that Black people, people abuse. I don't say Black people, people abuse.
Predatory loans.
Well, stated income, stated assets. How much money do you make, Abdul? How much money do you got in your bank? Don't worry about it. Don't send it to me. You're good.
Yep.
When we heard that, and I was a loan officer at that time, I remember talking to a teacher who said, you need to give me this loan. And I said, well, if you do 100% stated income, stated asset loan, that means you got no equity in your home. If the market turns and you're in your house, you're not going to be able to sell it if you wanted to, because you can't pay anybody off to buy it. So you're in the hole. And the sister who was the principal, who was smart, told me, says, look, if you don't give it to me, I'm gonna go next door to someone who will. So part of this was not necessarily the banks. Banks were partially responsible for the programs that they created that didn't have guardrails, but there was some education lapses on us, the people. When I go, everything is rooted in education, where we could have made better decisions in that time of crisis, because the time of crisis was caused by the prior administration that we were just unfortunately bottoming out in with Obama.
And don't you think also? But part of the issue was the fact that we're talking about prior to 2008 was the fact that they took away Glass-Steagall and they started to these collateralized debt obligations, and they started to allow people. They started these predatory loans and taking the investment side and the commercial side and merging them together when it shouldn't have been. I don't think a lot of this would have happened if you had fail-safes in place that they took away. I think a lot, like I keep saying, a lot of it is the system that's set up.
Let me ask you one quick question. Let's go quick, James, because we go to predatory loans. The biggest issue the banks have now is they don't give loans to Black people. Yes. I hear it all the time. Now, we gave when there were loans that had credit scores down to 540. When there were loans that didn't count your money and your assets, and now we're giving everybody loans, it becomes predatory. So now the guardrails are in place. You got to strike a balance, because the pendulum goes both.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
So you got to find that balance. But I would say there was responsibility across the board, and even now, because I think there's another housing crisis that's going to come here in the next few years.
Right. Yep. It's like in April and May. Yeah.
Are the guardrails they put in place by the credit requirements and the income requirements and asset requirements going to be strong enough to stabilize us from getting a home, stabilize us to get us through this crash? And what does that do to the impact that it's going to have on our communities when we're not able to lend based off of when African-American credit scores are 614? I'm sorry. The average credit score was 614 for that, and for white people, it was like 660 something. So you got credit disparity, again, back to those old things we talk about for reparations to kind of fix it. It's educating them, understanding the rules and the terms of the game, so that now you're putting yourself in a situation where you're prepared and qualified to purchase a home while mitigating the risk of these crashes that are bound to come. So I don't want to blame Obama. I think he put some things in place to try to help. I think the market is what the market is, and it's always going to be positioned to win, which is why even in a down market, the stock market's going to make money. So when you say the other folk are making all this money, that's kind of how the system is rigged.
It is.
And until we're able to compete and be in the system with the wealth that James is talking about, we're always going to be. There was something I watched on LinkedIn the other day, or it might have been, I can't remember what it was. I'm getting old. But rich people don't get rich off of making other people rich.
Mm-mm.
They get rich off of the poor people who spend their money trying to act rich. And until we get educated and smart enough to really understand the rules of the game and how to play them to be that, then we're always going to be susceptible, because that honestly is just a game. And it wasn't just black people impacted. The number of white people that also were impacted is great. We were just at a slightly higher percentage, but that fall of 2006, 7, and 8 was critical to a lot of people.
I want to get James.
Can I?
Yeah, let me get James in.
in
I just want to say real quick that he did mismanage the Hemp Act, and the one thing that he did do was that he gave the money to infuse the banks. He gave the money directly to the banks, but wouldn't give the money directly to the people. And that, to me, is how the system is rigged.
What would have, and I completely agree with, he gave it to the banks, but he gave it to the banks because if he didn't give it to the banks, and the banks would have called all the notes. The banks would have pulled a whole potentially different response. So it's kind of, which one if I gave it to the people, would the people have been able to rectify how to correct the situation? Or if I give it to the banks to try to fix the system, will it have a better play? So I don't even want to call it mismanagement. I was just saying the system is rigged. But yet it's a system in which we live, and if the system crashes, we all crash. But anyway, I'll go ahead and let James, who's in the system.
Let me jump in. Let me jump in. So, three rules. All right, these are my personal 3 rules. You can take them or leave them. Rule number 1: when you follow the crowd, you're going to step in shit. Stop following the crowd. It is a pendulum. So if you see a whole bunch of people going in one direction, start planning to go in the other direction. Example, during the housing crisis. Back in 2002, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that a housing crash was coming. I just didn't know.
You didn't tell me.
I told Abdul. Abdul knows this story, right? Abdul knows this story. Everyone told me I was crazy. James, what are you talking about? Housing prices are doubling. What are you talking about? I said, no, this isn't right. And so I literally sold my house in 2002. Rented from 2002 until everything crashed, and I bought the house I planned to retire in 2010. So when everyone else was losing their homes or trying to sell their homes, I was one of the few buyers actually buying a house. I bought my house for 60% off. I have a swimming pool the size of most hotel pools, and I did that, right, Abdul? And I did that because of long-term planning, right? So number 1, if you follow the crowd, you're going to step in shit. Don't just do what everyone else is doing. If too many people are going in one direction, you need to be looking in the other direction. By the way, that's called being a contrarian. You want to be a contrarian, okay? Rule number 1. Rule number 2 is the system is rigged to make sure that the people with money keep the money. Let me say it again. The system's rigged to make sure that the people with money keep the money. So what really caused the housing crisis and the financial crisis of 2009? It actually started way back in 1999 during the dot-com bubble. So people started investing in the stock market in companies that had no real assets. Because they had a website, people were giving them billions of dollars, and then when they found out there was nothing there, people started pulling their money out, stock market crashed. Again, the system's rigged to make sure people with money keep money. So what did they do to help people who were losing money, who had all the money? They dropped interest rates. They lowered interest rates. By lowering interest rates, it caused the housing boom. So now interest rates are low. People are like, wow, I can get a house and only pay, at the time, 5% interest. That was considered low back then, right? That's what drove the housing market. And then what we already talked about, Abdul mentioned collateral debt obligations, basically taking these mortgages, bundling up together, and then selling them like a pizza pie. Here's your slice of these insurance, of these mortgages, so that these companies that were making lots of money on this stuff can keep making money. But then when they ran out of good mortgages, like high quality mortgages, meaning with good interest rates, that's when they lowered the credit scores to try to get more mortgages so they could sell more of these mortgage-backed securities. But then they started selling so many of them, and the underlying mortgages started going because people couldn't pay them, especially when the teaser rates were running out. Now the stock market started going down again. So housing went down, stock market crashes. So that's what happened. So then what do? Then they started printing money, quantitative easing 1, 2, and 3, right? That all that is basically printing money, giving it to companies, again, the people with the money, right? Giving it to these banks and investment houses and saying, go loan it out. But they didn't loan it out. They kept it, right? So, and then they started buying back their own stocks to pump up their stock prices. So now we have a stock market at an all-time high when people don't have jobs, when people can't afford food. Everyone's asking, how is this happening? It's because they held on to the money they got back in 2010, 2013, 2014, right? Billions and billions of dollars. So now housing is going way up because a lot of companies are also just buying up houses again, swatches of houses, right? It's going to go in the other direction, right? So again, rule number 2, the system is rigged so that the people with money keep the money. You got to just know that. So always ask yourself, how is this going to work against me? What's happening? How's it going to work against me? That's rule 2. Rule number 3, play the long game. You cannot sit here today and say, here's how I'm going to get $1 million 3 months from now. Very few people can do that. Very few people can go on Shark Tank and walk away millionaires. That doesn't happen to everyone. That doesn't happen to most people. Very few people win the lottery. Very few people, can walk away with billions of dollars or millions of dollars a year from now, right? Play a longer game. Don't try to hit the home run. Try to get the first base. Here's where I am today. What can I do to get this much better? Whatever that is, whatever that target is. And then from there, once I hit that step, how do I go a little bit further and get here? Play the long game. So if you try to hit the home run, you're going to strike out a lot. But you can get the first base a lot easier. Just get the first base, then get the second base, then get the third base. And when you reach home, get back to first base again, your new first base. Play the long game. So 3 rules. Number 1, don't follow the crowd. You're going to step in shit. Number 2, the system is rigged so that people with the money keep the money. And rule number 3, play the long game.
I think that is excellent advice. 3 great rules and a great way to end this conversation, even though I know it can go and go and go. We got folks who have tuned in preaching. Jack has preached here. Tori's still in the game, dropping knowledge in the comments. I wanted to say hello to new folks that we haven't heard from. Kathy, this was part of an earlier conversation. She asked, in the end, this was the earlier conversation about reparations, but is anyone watching Soul of a Nation on Tuesday evenings on ABC? So I know I have not, but I hear it's good stuff. So tune into that as well. We got Kimberly.
You said I was right.
No, no. But you know what?
Read it.
Wait,
Reread
here.
it.
I know one for you. Jack somewhere said that he disagreed with you, so I'm
talking about Jack. We're talking about the comments that happened that said I was right.
No, but and then at the last shout out to Kimberly Morgan in the audience, and she chimed in and said, "Thank you for keeping it real with all of this conversation." So thank you both, and we're just gonna have to have you back, because I know that there's definitely some other questions. I think Jack had a question early about cryptocurrency. James, I would love to hear your stuff about that, but we are going to push pause because we are at an hour and a half, and we have to end with our Black Person of the Week. This is our segment where we celebrate someone outstanding in the community, and we cannot think of a better person to celebrate than our very own Christy Ferris. Monday is her birthday. It is March 7th, and we just wanted to show her some love and let her know how much we appreciate. She was born in Middletown, Ohio, and attended Emerson College in Boston. In the 90s, she began appearing on TV sitcoms, The Steve Harvey Show, Sister, Moesha, before landing the role of Simone Russell on the NBC daytime soap opera Passions. Christy left Passions in 2006 in order to pursue an singing career. Yes, she has got a songbird voice, and she's had recurring roles on Kylie, The Girlfriend of Zach, Braff's character, Dr. Dorian, on the NBC sitcom Scrubs. She guest starred on All of Us, Castle, in Nashville. And in 2015, Christy began starring in the pop series Queens of Drama and can currently be seen and is currently shooting Monogamy, and that's on the All Black Network. Here is a clip of some of Christy's work.
I never signed up to marry a stranger, Connor. So if you want to go, go. You never gave me everything that you had. You didn't trust me enough to let me know who you really were, and you expect me to trust that it was all right?
I loved you. Don't dismiss that.
That wasn't love, Connor. That's just another hustle. This was nothing but business for you.
So you're the lawyers who are going to help us with this water situation?
Yeah.
Violet mentioned you. I'm Gloria, her girlfriend. I just want to say that I'm glad someone's looking out for us. You can't sue the Blackwoods.
Why not?
Diana Blackwood owns my restaurant.
So?
How do you think that looks? My girlfriend suing my employer. Diana will fire me.
Come on, you don't know that.
I have a kid. I can't afford to lose my job.
Yeah, and I have a house I can't sell because no water. We win some money, we can finally move to Fresno. It'll be good for both of us.
If we win. You can't guarantee that, can you?
No, but I can guarantee we'll do our best.
You belong on a Tarzan episode, not my TV. So take that Zulu dancing jigaboo shit back to Africa before I hang you from a tree where you should be. Don't imagine Dick Clark gets many letters like this.
Cost of being black in America.
How often do you receive these death threats?
Not often enough to stop.
Little Richard tonight. Suddenly you're the black Dick Clark.
Business before beauty, Jean. Sorry.
So am I. I don't have enough material to write a story. We don't finish today, it doesn't run.
We'll finish after the show.
No can do. Either take me along or you can kiss the cover right on. Adios.
After you.
Yeah. And beyond the acting, yes, Christy is an acting coach, humanitarian, and all-around great friend who continues to go out of her way to help others. So for all you do and all you are, Christy, happy birthday. You are our Black Person of the Week. Yeah. Abdul, anything you want to add there?
No, I've known Christy Ferris for about a good over 10 years or so, and she's just been an amazing person, an amazing friend, and always willing to lend a helping hand, let you sleep on the couch when you come to LA. So Christy's always great, and I'm happy for her and her success and all that she's going through, and I just wish her a happy birthday on Monday and many more in the future, and whatever she wants in life, I hope she gets it.
Absolutely. And James, thank you both for being on our show today. Can you both share with folks who want to follow up if they have some questions with all the information that you both shared, where folks can find you? Start with you, James LeGrand.
Sure. I'm on social media. You can find me on Facebook. Just search for James LeGrand. I'm on LinkedIn. Again, just search for James LeGrand. I have a Twitter account, not that active, but I do respond to anyone who comments on there. Just, again, at James LeGrand.
Awesome. What about you, James McDuffie?
Mine's the same. You can find me on Facebook, James McDuffie, as well as LinkedIn, James McDuffie.
All right. Well, this was an amazing conversation. Abdul, you have any parting last words for this episode?
Yes, James McDuffie. When Obama gave the banks that $700 million, the $700 billion bailout. The Treasury, the Feds also gave them like 1.7 trillion at like a 0.0% or 0.3% interest rate. So the game is absolutely rigged against the working man.
Save the system, you save the people. That was a philosophy.
Wu-Tang is for the children. That's a philosophy too, but that hasn't worked either.
James, do you see, brother James, do you see what I have to deal with? Abdul always has to have the last word, and he always wants to throw Obama under the bus. I can't. I just can't. If it wasn't for Christy, I couldn't do the show. I just couldn't.
Michigan, you know, I love me.
Oh boy, but no, this has been an awesome episode. Kathy wants to know. Abdul is like the Terminator. Dude does not quit. No, he does not.
I can confirm that. I can confirm that.
Yes.
Quit.
And James coming back on. We don't stay tuned because these brothers will be back. Thank you both for all that you brought to the show and are bringing to the world. Keep spreading love and spreading knowledge. And everybody at home, we went into overtime and you stuck in there with us. Thank you so much. This is this episode of This Week in BPS. We'll catch you next week. Take care, y'all.
Later.
Bye. Thank you, James and James.